The massive alien ship appeared over Earth without warning. It was bigger than any city, its dark metal surface covered in strange lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. The world's military forces scrambled jets and pointed every weapon they had at the sky, but the ship just hung there, silent and waiting. Then it spoke. Not with radio waves or any technology humans understood, but directly into the minds of every person on Earth. The voice was cold and mechanical, like ice scraping against metal. We are the Galactic Council. We come in peace to offer your species a great honor. President Chen sat in the emergency bunker deep beneath Washington, surrounded by generals and scientists. Her hands shook as she pressed the button that would broadcast her response to the alien ship. This is President Chen of the United Earth Coalition. We welcome you. What is this honor you speak of? We will send a representative to explain. Prepare a suitable meeting place. The communication ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. For the first time in human history, they were not alone in the universe, but somehow nobody felt like celebrating. 3 days later, the alien shuttle landed on the lawn of the United Nations building in New York. The craft was small but elegant, shaped like a teardrop made of silver liquid. When it opened, something that barely looked alive stepped out. Ambassador Vexathala was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like old leather. Its eyes were too large for its head, completely black with no white parts at all. When it moved, it seemed to float rather than walk. Behind it came 2 guards that looked like walking tanks made of blue crystal. The meeting room was packed with every important leader on Earth. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists all sat around a massive table, trying not to stare at the alien sitting at the head. Vexathala spoke without moving its mouth. The words just appeared in everyone's minds, cold and clear. Your species has reached the point where it can travel between stars. This means you are ready to join the galactic community. We, the Galactic Council, control all space travel and trade in this part of the galaxy. We maintain peace and order among 847 different species. Secretary General Martinez leaned forward. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but her voice was steady and strong. That sounds wonderful. What do we need to do to join? The alien's black eyes turned toward her. Something that might have been a smile crossed its face, though it looked more like a crack in old wood. The process is simple. All new species must pay a civilization tax to help maintain galactic peace. For humans, this will be 60% of all resources your planet produces each year. Food, metals, energy, everything. Shocked whispers filled the room. 60% of everything Earth made? That would mean starvation and collapse for billions of people. But Vexathala wasn't finished. Second, your species is too aggressive. This is common among young races. We will provide genetic treatments to make humans more peaceful and suitable for galactic society. Don't worry. You will still be human, just better. President Chen's face had gone pale. Genetic treatments? You want to change our DNA? For the good of all, the alien replied, as if talking about the weather. And finally, Earth is too crowded. We have prepared suitable labor worlds where 80% of your population can be relocated. They will have good jobs helping build things the galaxy needs. The room fell completely silent. Every human leader sat frozen, trying to understand what they had just heard. They weren't being invited to join the galactic community. They were being enslaved. General Harrison, the head of Earth's military forces, was the first to find his voice. And if we refuse? This time, Vexathala's smile was definitely real, and it was terrifying. No species has ever been so foolish. You have seen our ship. It is one of thousands. Your weapons are like stones thrown at the stars. Refusal means the end of human civilization. The alien stood up, its crystal guards moving to flank it. But this will not be necessary. Every species we have contacted has seen the wisdom of our offer. The Vrex fought us for 3 days before surrendering. The Keth held out for a full week. Both are now productive members of galactic society. How long do we have to decide? Martinez asked. 30 of your days. This is very generous. We usually give new species only 1 week, but humans show promise and we prefer willing cooperation to forced compliance. As the aliens prepared to leave, President Chen stood up. Her voice was carefully controlled, showing none of the anger burning in her eyes. Ambassador Vexithala, we thank you for this generous offer. We will need time to discuss this with our people and make the right decision for humanity's future. Of course, the alien replied. We understand that primitive species need time to process such concepts. We will return in 30 days for your answer. The shuttle lifted off silently, disappearing into the sky like a silver ghost. The alien mothership remained, a dark shadow hanging over Earth like a sword about to fall. As soon as the aliens were gone, the room erupted in angry voices. Some leaders wanted to fight immediately. Others said resistance was hopeless. A few suggested that maybe the aliens were right, that humanity needed to be guided by wiser beings. Martinez slammed her hand on the table, bringing silence. Listen to me, all of you. They want 60% of our resources, which means billions of people will starve. They want to change our genetics, which means we won't be human anymore. They want to scatter us across the galaxy as slave labor. This isn't an invitation to join anything. This is extermination with extra steps. But what can we do? Asked the Prime Minister of India. You heard what they said, thousands of ships, technology we can't even understand. General Harrison smiled grimly. They made one big mistake. They gave us 30 days. 30 days to do what? Chen asked. 30 days to become the kind of enemy they've never faced before. Over the next few hours, as reports came in from around the world, one thing became clear. The alien ship wasn't just hanging in space doing nothing. It was scanning everything. Military bases, factories, population centers, resource deposits. It was mapping Earth like a farmer planning which fields to harvest, but it wasn't trying to hide what it was doing. The aliens were so confident in human submission that they didn't even bother with stealth. After all, why would sheep need to know how the shepherd plans to shear them? In secret bunkers and hidden facilities around the world, phones began to ring. Scientists who had been working on theoretical projects suddenly found unlimited funding and resources. Military leaders who had been planning for conventional wars were told to think bigger, stranger, and more dangerous. The aliens had given humanity 30 days, thinking it was generous. They had no idea they had just given the most dangerous species in the galaxy a month to prepare for war. As night fell over Earth, President Chen stood on the balcony of the White House, looking up at the alien ship. Its lights pulsed steadily, like a heart beating in the darkness. You want to know what humans are like when we're cornered? She whispered to the stars. You're about to find out. The next morning, the world woke up to a different reality. Every news channel, radio station, and internet site carried the same message from President Chen. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with determination. Fellow citizens of Earth, yesterday we learned we are not alone in the universe. We also learned that the beings who found us see us as nothing more than animals to be tamed and used. They have given us 30 days to surrender our freedom, our humanity, and our future. I am here to tell you that Earth's answer is already decided. We will not kneel. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, every major government on Earth had pledged their full support. Old enemies put aside their differences. Resources, technology, and knowledge that had been hoarded for decades suddenly became shared property of all humanity. Dr. Sarah Kim, the world's leading expert on quantum physics, found herself on a military transport plane heading to a secret facility in Nevada. She had been pulled from her university lab with no explanation, just orders from the highest levels of government. The facility was built inside a mountain, with tunnels that seemed to go on forever. When she arrived, she couldn't believe what she saw. Scientists from every nation worked side by side with military engineers and computer programmers. Russians worked with Americans. Chinese researchers shared data with Europeans. Indians collaborated with Pakistanis. The normal barriers between countries had simply disappeared. Dr. Kim, welcome to Project Defiance, said General Harrison as he led her through the facility. We need your expertise on quantum entanglement communication. How fast can you build us a galaxy-wide internet? Galaxy-wide? General, the power requirements alone would be enormous. We'd need fusion reactors just to... Already being built, he interrupted, pointing to a massive construction area where teams of engineers worked around the clock. Fusion, antimatter, zero-point energy, everything we've been researching for decades is being fast-tracked. Money is no object. Time is the only thing we don't have enough of. As they walked, Dr. Kim saw projects that made her head spin. A team of biologists was working with artificial intelligence experts to design something they called adaptive combat medicine. Physicists were building weapons that used black hole theory. Computer scientists were creating AI systems that could think faster than any organic brain. "How is all this possible?" she asked. Harrison smiled grimly. "Turns out when you threaten to exterminate the human race, we get very creative very fast." Meanwhile, in a different part of the facility, Captain Marcus Stone was being briefed on humanity's most secret military projects. Stone was a pilot, one of the best in the world, but what they were showing him was beyond anything he had ever imagined. "These are torch ships," explained Dr. Patel, the chief engineer. "Fusion-powered spacecraft that can accelerate continuously at multiple G-forces. We've been working on the design for 20 years but never had the budget to build them. Now, we're building 100. The ships looked like metal arrows tipped with fire. They were small, fast, and deadly. Each one carried experimental weapons that could destroy targets the size of cities." "How fast are they?" Stone asked. "Fast enough to reach the edge of the solar system in 3 days. Fast enough to make the aliens think twice about hanging around our neighborhood." But the real surprise came when Stone was shown the pilot seats. They weren't designed for humans. They were designed for human consciousness downloaded into quantum computers. "We can't build ships that accelerate fast enough and still keep biological pilots alive," Dr. Patel explained. "So we're not using biological pilots. Your mind, your skills, your experience, all uploaded into a computer system that can think 1,000 times faster than your organic brain." Stone stared at the gleaming pilot interface. "You want to turn me into a computer? We want to turn you into the fastest, deadliest pilot who ever lived. And don't worry, it's completely reversible. Once the crisis is over, you get your biological body back." While the military prepared for war, Earth's greatest minds worked on a different kind of weapon: information. The alien ship hanging over Earth was constantly scanning and communicating, sending data back to the Galactic Council through some kind of faster-than-light transmission. What the aliens didn't know was that humans had been listening. Dr. Elena Vasquez was Earth's top expert in alien communication systems, a job that hadn't existed a week ago. She worked with a team of linguists, mathematicians, and computer programmers to decode the alien transmissions. "It's like they're not even trying to hide their communications," she told her team. "The encryption is thousands of years old. My laptop could crack this." "Maybe that's because no one has ever tried to spy on them before," suggested Dr. Chen, a specialist in military intelligence. "If you've been the top predator for 1,000,000 years, you don't worry about mice learning your secrets." "Well, these mice are about to become very well informed," Elena replied as her computers finished decoding another batch of alien data. What they found was shocking. The Galactic Council had used the same trick on 847 different species. They would arrive, make their demands, and wait for surrender. It had worked every single time. No species had ever said no. More importantly, they learned about the Council's military structure. The aliens had thousands of ships, but they were spread across the entire galaxy. They had never needed to concentrate their forces because no one had ever fought back. "Look at this," Dr. Chen said, pointing to a tactical display. "They're planning to send what they call an enforcement fleet if we refuse. But it's only 10,000 ships." "Only 10,000. Elena laughed bitterly. "That could destroy our entire planet 10 times over." "Maybe," Chen replied, "but it's not their entire military. It's just what they think they need to crush one primitive planet. They're not taking us seriously." "That could be our advantage." The information about other enslaved species was even more valuable. For the first time, humanity learned they weren't alone in suffering under Council rule. Hundreds of species had been conquered and broken, forced to work as slaves for the Galactic Empire. But some of those species had never completely given up hope. Hidden resistance movements existed on dozens, of worlds. They had been waiting centuries for anyone, to make the first move against the Council. If we can get word to them, Elena realized, if we can show them that someone is finally fighting back, then we won't be facing the Council alone, Dr. Chen finished. As the days passed, Earth transformed. Factories that had made cars and computers now produced weapons and spacecraft. Universities became research centers for exotic physics and alien technology. Even children contributed, with schools collecting scrap metal and electronics for the war effort. The aliens, watching from their ship above, saw none of this preparation. Their scanners were designed to detect conventional military buildup, tanks, jets, missiles. They couldn't understand the true nature of human creativity and determination. By day 15, Earth had built its first working faster-than-light communication system. By day 20, the first torch ships were ready for
testing.
By day 25, human hackers had completely penetrated the Council's information networks. On day 28, Dr. Vasquez made a discovery that changed everything. While digging through Council databases, she found something that made her blood run cold. The Council isn't just enslaving species, she told the emergency meeting of world leaders. They're harvesting them. Over the past 1,000,000 years, they've made 3,000 species extinct, not through war or accident, deliberately. When a species stops being useful, when their homeworld's resources are depleted, the Council simply eliminates them and moves on to the next one. The room fell silent. Every human leader understood what this meant. They weren't just fighting for their freedom. They were fighting for their survival as a species. How long do species usually last under Council rule? President Chen asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Based on the data, most species are extinct within 500 years of first contact. The longest any species has survived is 2,000 years. General Harrison stood up slowly. Then we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every species the Council has enslaved, and for all the species they plan to enslave in the future. If we lose, Chen said quietly, humanity disappears, forever. Then we don't lose, Martinez replied firmly. Whatever it takes, however impossible it seems, we don't lose. On day 29, Ambassador Vexithala sent a message to Earth. We will arrive tomorrow for your answer. We trust you have made the wise choice. That night, President Chen stood, again on the White House balcony looking up at the alien ship. But this time she wasn't afraid. Earth was ready. On the 30th day, Ambassador Vexithala returned to Earth with complete confidence. The alien shuttle landed at the same spot on the UN lawn, and the ambassador emerged with the same floating walk and cold smile. This time, however, it brought no guards. After all, what could primitive humans do to a representative of the mighty Galactic Council? The meeting room looked exactly the same as 30 days before, with world leaders sitting around the massive table. But something was different. In the air, the humans sat straighter, their eyes sharper, their faces calmer. They looked like people who had made a decision and were at peace with it. Secretary General Martinez stood as the alien entered. Her voice was warm and welcoming. Ambassador Vexithala, welcome back to Earth. Please take your seat. We have prepared our response to your generous offer. The alien settled into its chair, black eyes scanning the room with amusement. These primitives still didn't understand the reality of their situation. In a few minutes, they would sign their surrender documents and Earth would become another productive world in the Council's empire. We are pleased that you have used your time wisely, Vexithala said, its mental voice dripping with condescension. The Council appreciates species that can recognize superior wisdom. What is your decision? Martinez smiled back, and somehow her smile was even colder than the aliens. We have indeed used our time wisely, Ambassador. We have learned a great deal about the Galactic Council in the past 30 days, about your methods, your history, and your weaknesses. For the first time, something that might have been uncertainty flickered in the aliens' black eyes. We have also learned about the 3,000 species you have exterminated over the past 1,000,000 years, Martinez continued, her voice never changing from its pleasant tone. The Yith, who built beautiful crystal cities before you turned their world into a mining operation. The Corvani, whose art and music enriched the galaxy before you decided they were no longer useful. The Draenei, who developed clean energy technology that could have benefited everyone, before you wiped them out for asking too many questions about council policies. The aliens' confidence was cracking. How could these primitives know about extinct species from thousands of years ago? That information was classified at the highest levels of council security. Your research is impressive, Vexithala said slowly, but irrelevant. The past cannot be changed. Only the future matters. What is your answer to our offer? President. Chen leaned forward, her eyes locked on the alien's face. Our answer is no. The simple word hung in the air like a physical force. Vexthala stared at the human president as if she had just claimed the sun was made of ice. I do not understand. You said no? We said no. Martinez confirmed. We reject your offer completely. We will not give you our resources. We will not allow you to change our genetics. We will not scatter our people across the galaxy as slave labor. Humanity chooses to remain free. The alien's composure finally broke. It stood up so quickly that its chair fell backwards. You cannot refuse. No species has ever refused. Do you have any idea what you're doing? We have 10,000 ships. We can turn your planet into glass. We can exterminate every human being in the galaxy. Actually, Martinez said calmly, you have 9,147 ships. We destroyed 153 of them yesterday. The alien's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. Impossible. You have no space-capable military. Your scans showed what we wanted them to show. General Harrison interrupted. While you were watching our old military bases and obsolete weapons, we were building something entirely new. Something you never thought to look for because no primitive species had ever tried it before. President Chen pressed a button on the table, and the room's main screen lit up with an image that made the alien stumble backwards. It showed space near Proxima Centauri, where a council supply convoy had been traveling between star systems. Or rather, where it had been traveling. Now there was only wreckage and debris. This happened 6 hours ago, Chen explained. A council convoy carrying weapons and supplies to 3 different enslaved worlds. Our ships intercepted it and gave the crew a choice: surrender or be destroyed. They chose surrender. The crews are unharmed, but their ships and cargo now belong to the resistance movement on those worlds. But you have no faster-than-light travel, Vexthala protested. We do now, Martinez replied. Along with faster-than-light communication, quantum-entangled navigation systems, and AI-controlled weapon platforms that can think at light speed. Amazing what humans can accomplish when properly motivated. The alien was struggling to process what it was hearing. In 30 days, these primitives had somehow developed technology that should have taken centuries to perfect. It was impossible, but the evidence was right there on the screen. How? It whispered. Because you made the same mistake every bully makes, Chen said. You assumed that being strong meant being smart. You've been using the same tactics for 1,000,000 years because they always worked. You never had to innovate, never had to improve, never had to think creatively. You just had to be bigger and stronger than everyone else. But humans don't work that way, Harrison added. When you corner us, we don't just roll over and die. We get angry. We get creative. We find ways to hit back that you never see coming. Martinez stood and walked to the window, looking up at the council mothership hanging in the sky above New York. For example, did you know that your ship has been completely isolated from the council network for the past week? Every message you've sent, every data packet you've transmitted, we've been intercepting and replacing them. As far as the council knows, Earth surrendered 5 days ago and everything is proceeding normally. The alien's face went pale gray. You have been jamming council communications? Not jamming. Redirecting. Your ship is now part of our network, not yours. Every system on that vessel is under human control. Your crew doesn't know it yet, but they've been our prisoners for days. Vexithala looked around the room with growing panic. Every human face stared back with the same calm confidence. These weren't the desperate primitives it had expected to crush. These were predators who had been pretending to be prey. But even if this is true, the alien said desperately, you cannot fight the entire council. We have millions of ships across the galaxy. Had, Martinez corrected. Past tense. While we've been talking, something interesting has been happening. On 847 different worlds. It seems that news of humanity's refusal to surrender has been spreading through the resistance networks. Amazing how fast information can travel when you have quantum-entangled communication systems. The screen changed to show a dozen different star systems. On each one, explosions bloomed like flowers as orbital weapons platforms and council ships were destroyed by coordinated attacks from the surface. The Virex Collective has declared independence and destroyed every council installation in their system, Chen reported. The Keth have taken control of their orbital shipyards and are building weapons instead of consumer goods. The silicon-based architects have activated weapon systems they've been secretly building for 3,000 years, just waiting for someone to fire the first shot. In the past 12 hours, Harrison continued, 327 different species have openly rebelled against council rule. They're not just fighting for their own freedom. They're coordinating their attacks, sharing intelligence, and supporting each other. For the first time in a million years, the council is facing organized resistance across the entire galaxy. The alien collapsed back into its chair, black eyes wide with shock. Everything the council had built, everything they had controlled, for a million years was falling apart in a single day. How? It whispered again. Martinez turned back to the table with a smile that was almost pitying. Because you taught us something important, Ambassador. You showed us exactly how your empire works. Fear, intimidation, isolation, keep every species alone and afraid, and they'll never fight back. But you made one critical error. What error? You gave us 30 days to contact every enslaved species in the galaxy and tell them the truth. That someone had finally said no. That resistance was possible, that they weren't alone anymore. The alien stared at her in growing horror. You started a galactic war. No, Martinez replied firmly. You started a galactic war 1,000,000 years ago. You've been fighting it against defenseless species who couldn't fight back. Today, for the first time, it became a fair fight. President Chen leaned forward. Now, Ambassador, let me make you an offer. You can return to your ship and leave our solar system immediately. Take a message to what's left of the Council. Tell them that the age of their empire is over. Tell them that Earth offers sanctuary to any species that wants to be free, and protection to any world that chooses to resist. And if we refuse? Vexathala asked weakly. Then you'll discover what happens when you threaten a species that split. The atom as a weapon, developed biological warfare, and created artificial intelligence all in the same century. You wanted to know what humans are like when we're cornered, Ambassador. Are you sure you want to find out? The alien stood on shaking legs and stumbled toward the door. As it reached the exit, Martinez called out one last time. Oh, and Ambassador, when you get back to your ship, you might want to check your navigation. The Council's response came exactly as Earth's military strategists had predicted. 3 days after Ambassador Vexathala's humiliating retreat, the largest battle fleet in Council history jumped into the outer edge of the solar system. 10,000 ships of every size and class, from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets in half. War Marshal Krextar commanded the fleet from the bridge of the Infinite Dominion, a ship so large it had its own gravity and weather systems. The War Marshal was a veteran of 1,000 campaigns, though none of them had lasted longer than a few hours. Usually, the sight of the enforcement fleet was enough to make entire systems surrender without a fight. Scan the system, Krextar ordered his bridge crew. Show me what these primitives think they can do against the might of the Council. The tactical display lit up with information from a dozen different sensor arrays. What it showed made several bridge officers laugh out loud. Earth's defenses looked pathetic. A few hundred small ships scattered throughout the solar system, some orbital platforms around the major planets, and what appeared to be mining operations on several asteroids. This is what they built in 30 days, sneered Commander Yith, the fleet's tactical officer. Our reconnaissance was right. They have no idea how to wage war in space. War Marshal Krextar studied the display with the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. The human ships were tiny compared to council vessels, and there were so few of them. This would be over in minutes. Send the standard surrender demand, he ordered. Give them one chance to avoid complete annihilation. The message was broadcast on all frequencies toward Earth. Primitive humans, you are facing the Galactic Council. Enforcement Fleet, this is your final opportunity to surrender. Comply immediately or face extinction. The response came from Earth almost instantly, in clear galactic standard language. Unknown vessels, you are entering restricted solar system space without permission. You have 30 seconds to reverse course or face defensive action. The Council bridge crew burst into laughter. Defensive action? These primitives were threatening the greatest military force in galactic history. Begin the advance, Krextar ordered. Show them what happens to species that defy the Council. The massive fleet began moving toward the inner solar system, weapons charging and shields at maximum power. According to standard doctrine, they would destroy the human ships first, then bombard the planet until the survivors begged for mercy. But as they passed through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, something impossible happened. What the Council sensors had identified as mining operations suddenly revealed their true nature. The asteroids exploded outward, but instead of rock and ice, they released millions of objects that looked like metallic seeds. Each one was no bigger than a human fist, but they moved with purpose and intelligence. What are those? Commander, Eth asked, staring at the tactical display as clouds of small objects swarmed toward the fleet. Debris from asteroid mining, another officer suggested. Harmless rock fragments. They learned how wrong they were when the first objects reached the outer edge of the fleet. Each tiny device was a masterpiece of human engineering, a self-guided kinetic kill vehicle with its own AI brain and quantum targeting system. They moved faster than anything the Council had ever seen, changing direction at impossible angles and accelerating beyond what their sensors could track. The first Council ship to die was a destroyer on the fleet's left flank. A dozen of the small devices hit it within microseconds of each other, their combined kinetic energy punching through shields and armor like they weren't even there. The ship exploded in a ball of plasma that lit up space for 1,000,000 kilometers. Impossible, Krexter roared. Nothing that small could penetrate our shields. But the tactical display told a different story. Across the fleet, ships were dying at an alarming rate. The tiny human weapons moved too fast to track and hit too hard to stop. They seemed to know exactly where each ship's weak points were, as if they had detailed blueprints of every Council vessel class, which, thanks to 30 days of hacking Council databases, they did. Return fire, Krextar ordered. Destroy those weapons. The Council fleet opened fire with everything they had. Massive particle beams and plasma cannons lit up space, destroying millions of the tiny attackers. But for every one they destroyed, 10 more seemed to take its place. The asteroid belt had released a swarm of death that seemed endless. Sir, Commander Yith reported, his voice shaking. We've lost over 3,000 ships. Our weapons are having minimal effect on the remaining attack craft. How is this possible? Krextar demanded. They're primitives. They discovered spaceflight less than a century ago. His answer came from an unexpected source, a human voice speaking directly into his mind with the same mental communication technology the Council used. War Marshal Krextar, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You seem surprised by our capabilities. The War Marshal spun around, looking for the source of the voice. How are you communicating on our private channels? Same way we've been reading your tactical communications for the past 30 days, Admiral Chen replied. Her voice was calm and professional, like she was discussing the weather. Your encryption is approximately 3,000 years out of date. My 10-year-old nephew could crack it with his homework computer. On the main display, a new image appeared, the bridge of a human ship. Admiral Chen sat in the captain's chair. Surrounded by displays showing real-time views of the battle, she was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but her smile was absolutely terrifying. You're murdering my ships, Krextar snarled. You came to our solar system with 10,000 warships and threatened to exterminate my species. Chen replied mildly. What did you expect, a welcome party? As they spoke, the slaughter continued. The human kinetic kill vehicles had been joined by larger weapons, torpedo-like devices that emerged from what the Council had thought were human mining ships. These new weapons moved even faster and hit even harder, tearing through Council, dreadnoughts like paper. "This is impossible," Krextar repeated. "Your technology is primitive. Our scouts confirmed it." "Your scouts saw what we wanted them to see," Chen explained. "While you were looking at our old rockets and chemical explosives, we were building fusion torch drives, AI-guided smart weapons, and quantum-entangled targeting systems. The beautiful thing about human innovation is that we don't just improve existing technology, we completely reimagine what's possible." The War Marshal watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet was systematically destroyed by enemies he couldn't even see clearly. The human ships were small and fast, appearing just long enough to fire their weapons before disappearing again. They moved in coordinated groups, striking weak points and vanishing before the Council ships could return fire. "Sir," Commander Yeath shouted, "new contacts! Large human vessels approaching from the direction of Jupiter." The tactical display showed a formation of ships unlike anything in the Council database. They looked like metal arrows tipped with fire, and they moved with impossible grace and speed. As the Council watched, the ships seemed to flicker in and out of existence, appearing in one location and instantly reappearing somewhere else entirely. "Experimental faster-than-light combat drives," Admiral Chen explained helpfully. "We call them blink drives. Very useful for tactical positioning." The new human ships opened fire with weapons that defied everything the Council knew about physics. Beams of pure energy that seemed to bend space itself, creating small black holes that devoured everything in their path. Projectiles that phased through shields and armor before exploding inside enemy ships. Swarms of nanoscale weapons that ate through hull metal like acid. "Where did you get this technology?" Krextar demanded. "We invented it," Chen replied. "In 30 days. Amazing what humans can accomplish when we're properly motivated. You see, War Marshal, your biggest mistake was giving us a deadline. Humans work very well under pressure." The battle, if it could even be called that anymore, was turning into a complete rout. Council ships that had dominated star systems for millennia were being destroyed by weapons they couldn't understand, built by a species they had dismissed as primitives. "Sir," Commander Yeath reported, his voice barely above a whisper, "we've lost 70% of the fleet. Recommend immediate withdrawal." But when Krextar tried to order a retreat, he discovered the humans had one more surprise waiting. The space around the surviving Council ships suddenly filled with new contacts. More human vessels appearing from every direction at once. "I'm afraid we can't let you leave just yet," Admiral Chen said, and now her voice carried a harder edge. "You came here to commit genocide against my species. You've murdered billions of innocent people on hundreds of worlds. You think we're going to just let you run away and try again somewhere else?" The surviving Council ships found themselves completely surrounded. Everywhere they looked, human vessels hung in space like patient predators, weapons locked on target. "What do you want?" Krextar asked, and for the first time in his long military career his voice shook with fear. "Surrender," Chen replied simply. "Unconditional, immediate, complete surrender. Your ships, your weapons, your crew, everything. In exchange, we'll spare your lives and send you home with 6 months after the Battle of Sol. The galaxy was unrecognizable. The Galactic Council's million-year empire had crumbled in a matter of weeks, and something entirely new was taking its place." Secretary General Martinez stood on the observation deck of the Terran Federation flagship Defiance, watching as yet another liberated world celebrated its independence. Below them, the planet Keth Prime glowed with the lights of a billion free beings who were tasting freedom for the first time in 3,000 years. "The Keth delegation is ready to sign the Mutual Defense Treaty," Admiral Chen reported as she joined Martinez at the massive window. "That makes 400 worlds in the Federation, with more requesting membership every day." Martinez nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. "And how many species are still under Council control?" "According to our latest intelligence, fewer than 50 worlds. Most of the remaining Council fleets have either surrendered, defected, or simply disappeared into deep space. The ones still fighting are mainly the species who were part of the original council, the ones who have the most to lose from the old system falling apart. Any word from the hegemony? Martinez asked. The hegemony was Ambassador Vexithala's species, and they had been notably silent since their representative's humiliating retreat from Earth. Actually, yes, Chen replied with a slight smile. They sent a diplomatic message yesterday. They want to negotiate. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Negotiate what? Their surrender. Their membership in the Terran Federation. The irony wasn't lost on either woman. The species that had tried to enslave humanity 6 months ago was now begging to join the alliance that Earth had created. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime indicating an incoming priority message. The holographic display materialized in front of them, showing the face of Dr. Elena Vasquez, who was now head of the Federation's Xenological Research Division. Secretary General Admiral, Elena said excitedly, you need to see this. We've just received a message from the Vrex Collective. They've found something incredible in the old council archives. What kind of something? Martinez asked. Evidence that the council has been doing this for longer than we thought. Much longer. We're not talking about 1 million years of oppression. We're talking about 10 million years. And the number of extinct species isn't 3,000. It's over 50,000, the number hit both women like a physical blow. 50,000 species erased from existence by the Council's systematic program of exploitation and extermination. There's more, Elena continued. The archives contain detailed records of every species. The Council destroyed their cultures, their technologies, their art, their philosophies, everything the Council wanted to preserve before wiping out the creators. It's the largest collection of xenological knowledge in galactic history. And now it belongs to the Federation, Chen said quietly. We can learn from these lost civilizations, maybe even find ways to honor their memory. Martinez turned back to the window, looking out at the celebrations on Keth Prime. Each light down there represented a being that was alive and free because humanity had refused to kneel. But beyond this one world were thousands of others, all building something that had never existed before in the galaxy's history, a true alliance of equals. Any problems with the integration process? She asked. Fewer than expected, Chen replied. Most species are adapting well to the Federation's democratic structure. The biggest challenge is actually technological. Some of our new members are so far advanced that they're having trouble slowing down their development to help the less advanced species catch up. This was a problem Martinez had never imagined having. Instead of a galaxy ruled by a few powerful species dominating everyone else, they now had advanced civilizations voluntarily limiting their own progress to help their neighbors. The architects have been particularly helpful, Chen continued. They've started a massive infrastructure project to bring quantum communication networks to every Federation world, and the Zephyrians are sharing their medical technology. Apparently, they've had cures for most diseases for thousands of years, but the Council never let them distribute the treatments. What about the humans? Martinez asked. How are we handling our new role as, what are they calling us now? The catalyst species, Chen said with amusement. Though some of the younger races have started calling us the breakers, the species that broke the chains. Martinez smiled at that. It was better than some of the names humans had been called throughout their history. A new voice interrupted them, Captain Marcus Stone's mental transmission from the bridge. Stone was still one of the Federation's best pilots, though he now spent most of his time in quantum-enhanced form, commanding entire fleets through neural interface. Secretary General, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. President Chen wants to speak with you immediately. Patch it through, Martinez replied. President Chen's face appeared on the holographic display, but her expression was troubled rather than celebratory. Maria, we have a situation developing. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected something at the edge of the galaxy. Ships. Lots of them. Council remnants? Martinez asked. No, these aren't Council designs. They're something entirely different. And they're big. Much bigger than anything we've seen before. Admiral Chen leaned forward. How big? The largest ones are approximately the size of small moons. We're talking about a fleet that could hold billions of beings. And they're heading toward the core worlds. Toward us. Martinez felt a chill run down her spine. Just when they thought the galaxy was finally at peace, a new threat was emerging from the darkness between stars. Any idea who they are? She asked. We've managed to intercept some of their communications. The translation is still rough, but they call themselves the Eternal Dynasty. According to the fragments we've decoded, they've been watching our conflict with the Council from outside the galaxy. They're not happy about how things turned out. Why? Chen asked. President Chen's expression grew even grimmer. Because, apparently, the Galactic Council wasn't an independent empire. They were vassals. The Eternal Dynasty has been using the Council to manage this galaxy for them while they conquered others. Now that we've destroyed their local government, they're coming to deal with the problem personally. The celebration lights of Keth Prime suddenly seemed dimmer to Martinez. After everything they'd been through, after all the species they'd liberated, and the peace they'd built, now they faced an even greater threat. How long do we have? She asked. Based on their current speed, approximately 18 months before they reach the outer Federation worlds. Martinez looked out at the galaxy they'd worked so hard to free. Hundreds of species that had never known freedom were now building lives, families, and futures in a universe where they controlled their own destiny. The thought of losing all of that to an even more powerful enemy was unbearable. But then she remembered something Admiral Chen had said during the Battle of Seoul. Amazing what humans can accomplish when we're properly motivated. 18 months. It wasn't much time, but it was more than the 30 days they'd had to prepare for the Council. And this time, they wouldn't be facing the threat alone. They had 400 worlds, dozens of species, and technologies that spanned millions of years of development. Admiral, Martinez said, turning to Chen with a smile that was becoming familiar to enemies of freedom across the galaxy. I think it's time to call a Federation Council meeting. We need to start preparing for visitors. What kind of preparations? Chen asked, though her own smile suggested she already knew the answer. The kind humans specialize in, Martinez replied. The Eternal Dynasty is about to learn the same lesson the Galactic Council learned, that there are some species in this universe you just don't threaten. As the Defiance turned away from Keth Prime and began its journey back to Earth, Martinez took one last look at the free galaxy they'd built. It was beautiful, and it was worth fighting for. The Eternal Dynasty wanted to reclaim their lost vassal state. Let them come. They would discover that the galaxy now belonged to its people, and that the people had some very creative ideas about how to welcome uninvited guests. After all, humanity had spent 6 months learning from 400 different species about warfare, technology, and strategy. The species that had defeated the Galactic Council in 3 hours was about to become something even more dangerous. A species with friends. In the distance, stars twinkled like the eyes of sleeping giants, each one warming worlds where free beings were building the future they chose for themselves. And somewhere out there, beyond the edge of everything familiar, an ancient enemy was coming to take it all away. Martinez's smile grew wider. This was going to be fun. A message for what's left